Welcome to FinTech Spotlight. Now today we're going to be understanding a bit more about the company PPRO while we're here at Money 2020. And joining me here is James Booth from PPRO themselves. James, how are you? Good?
I'm doing very good, and you? Thank you for having me.
It's such a pleasure to have you on the show. Now James, could you tell our viewers a bit more about yourself and your role at PPRO, please?
Sure thing, yeah. So my name's James Booth, and I'm the Vice President and Head of Partnerships for Europe at PPRO.
Absolutely amazing.
So I mainly manage all of our client relationships, clients being PSPs, acquirers, gateways, etc. So anything to do with clients, commercialization, go-to-market, that's my role, that's my job.
Incredible, because this industry is based upon partnerships and creating an ecosystem.
Exactly.
Now I want to find out a little bit more about the e-commerce ecosystem, and could you kind of tell our viewers where you see the e-commerce landscape currently?
So I think we're in quite an interesting and exciting time in the e-commerce landscape. You know, we've been through, I think for the last 10 to 15 years, we've seen amazing growth. All the companies have been doing very well. Valuations have been skyrocketing. It's been a fun industry to be involved in. Obviously, COVID-19 and the pandemic, obviously put fuel on the fire and caused things to explode. There were a lot of businesses going absolutely, volumes were skyrocketing. I think post the pandemic, we've started to see a little bit of stagnation and a little bit of flatlining within the e-commerce industry, just as things have readjusted. But in saying that, there's still a lot of really unique and interesting opportunities that we see. Big markets, big card markets and kind of first world markets are starting to slow down, like the UK, the US, Australia, for example. They're still growing, still doing very well, but they're not growing at the same rates they used to in the past. But there's smaller markets around the world where we're seeing some interesting patterns occur. So you take Italy, for example. It's been a good growth over the past few years, but we're starting to see opportunities pop up where volume is shifting from traditional card rails to alternative rails, so to e-wallets, bank transfers, etc. That's obviously what we do, so we're a little bit biased towards it, but we are seeing big opportunities in some of these markets. So Italy being one, off the top of my head, Portugal and Poland are other interesting markets where we're seeing a lot of growth. Again, because of the shift in rails from consumers starting to prefer digital payment methods. And that's certainly where I see things going forward. So there's still a lot of growth. We're leveling things out at the moment, but the next few years are very exciting for payments and e-commerce.
I really can see it, because you often see traditional markets slow down, and then especially when it comes to payments,
yes,
it's the more mobile ones, the ones that have yet to adapt,
correct,
that can actually leapfrog. So I'm really excited to explore that.
I was about to say just that.
Right.
We're seeing markets leapfrog the more established markets, and it happens in other industries as well. So it's not only payments.
No, of course, yeah.
You look at, going on a tangent now, but you look at transportation, all of the new developing countries that are coming up with the best metro systems in the world is because they don't have the legacy of the London Underground or the metro system in New York, etc.
Yeah.
And the same thing's happening with payments and cards. The traditional countries that have relied on card rails and that have done very well with traditional card acquiring are starting to slow down. And it's the more emerging or kind of slightly less developed e-commerce markets are starting to leapfrog those, and that's where we're seeing a lot of growth. And that's certainly where we see a lot of opportunity for ourselves and for our clients going forward.
Amazing. Now you've mentioned Italy, Portugal. Maybe if we look further east, are you seeing developments in Eastern Europe? I know connected to the DACH region so closely. For instance, with Poland, is there any movement there?
Yeah, a lot of movement in Poland. Poland's been an interesting one from a bank transfer perspective.
Right.
Like Poland, to a degree, bank transfers in Poland it's an alternative scheme. It's done very well. So you think of it as an alternative compared to rails. But as a market, they're doing very well in moving towards open banking, for example. So you're seeing a lot of consumers shifting away from the traditional Polish bank transfer schemes to open banking, and it's becoming a high growth market for us in terms of e-commerce growth. So our TPV volume in Poland is growing very well. It's one of our highest growing markets in Europe at the moment.
Oh, incredible. Now when we're talking at this rate of change, how can the merchants, who can be anywhere from sole traders, small businesses, to large-scale corporates, how can they keep up with this pace of change?
Very difficult, to be honest. That's a short question, because I always explain to, let's say, my non-payment friends or non-payment colleagues, payments is like a spaghetti junction.
Yes.
Like trying to piece together the different elements of a payment solution is very difficult, and it's constantly moving. So for merchants to constantly find what's the best way to enter a market, what's the best way to kind of increase conversion rates or optimize your payments in certain markets, the best way to do that is to actually work with the right businesses. You know, at the end of the day, merchants should focus on their business. Merchants are not payments businesses. You know, they need to work with the right payment service provider, the right acquirer, the right orchestration layer to be able to fix together the best-in-class service for a particular market. And the only way they can do that is if they work with the right partners.